So here we can see the mount for the stringing there to clean off. The mount for the switches, for the water injection switch. And here you'll see underneath we've got the same kind of thing, so we need to break this through. There's two crucial bits here, just on the edges, along here and along here. These are very important because they allow the clip part to spring. You're liable to break something if you don't. Now you can chop out these bits carefully. Yes, the camera keeps going out of focus on this, it's quite annoying. You've got to be careful of the clip round here, so I'm going to carefully cut this all away. You don't have to cut out this slot part completely here. Come on, focus. There we go. But there's a little clip here, and you've got to be careful not to catch or damage that. I need to cut down the side here, around the back here, so you can see this little clip in the middle. We just have to very carefully trim round. It's very hard to see, I'm afraid, because it's all black, but it's what I was printing in at the time. So I'll trim out this other one. There we are. Make sure that slot's all clear. There we go. So this is again where one of these knives is very useful. We can carefully trim. Always make sure your knives are sharp. Doing this with a blunt knife is a nightmare. Make sure it's trimmed all the way around. And all the strings are gone. So there we go. And if we look in here, see there's a little clip that side and a little clip that side, and you'll see there's a round and a flat at each opposite ends. Now, oh, bump the camera there. Now let me get the two of these. So these are the little switches, the mini micro switches, and these will fit in so that this blade, the round is at the back to this part, and the blade, it won't actually fit in this way round. The blade will catch on it and it won't fit through, so it'll only fit in this way. Now they are tight, they should start to push in like that. You slide them in and they should get a little screwdriver just to push it, click, there you go. And you can see the clip just there has popped over the edge, and that's securely in place and up inside to be worked by the little knob. So we'll do the same with the other. And it is a bit fiddly. There we go, started. Once you're started, it's in, pop, there you go. Now they're both securely in place. We have the little pins ready to solder to. It should be noted on these, they do say on them. Now I don't know if we'll be able to get this in focus so you can see it. There you go. So we have C, which is our contact, then we have normally open and normally closed, so it'll be on the back side of this, these two connections which we solder to, and that will be our normally open switch connection. The next thing you want to try before we go too much further is make sure this fits in. So there's two lugs inside here, and this should slide down. You see they've got corresponding slot, and then it turns into this. So this should slide in like this, fit quite nicely, then turn like that, and that locks it in place so it can't come back out. So you want to check that these fit together, and if you need to, just lightly sand the outside of this, or make sure there's no lumps or bumps or anything else that's going to upset things in here when it printed. So that's something else to check before we go any further. Okay, next we want to solder the wires on here. Now, as we looked at earlier on this, we know that this is the normally closed, this is the common connection on the back here, which is on the curved side of this. So what we want to do is, you don't want to have a common connection coming back from every single one of these. So we want to make a little loop between that pin on the curved side there and that pin, with one coming down, which is then going to join onto the microphone button switch. So you want a piece like about that long, and this piece is going to allow it to come out off the button switch. So we want this to be a bit longer because you want to be able to remove it to get at it. So we'll make it about that long, so roughly, what, about 8 centimeters long. Then we're going to want to strip one piece back of that. So on the curved side we're going to wrap it around that pin. Now that's a fiddly job to do. You may have been better off doing this before clipping your bits in, but I wanted to show it clearly without all the wires in the way, so I'm going to do it the hard way and do it after I've clipped them in. So we'll wrap that around that pin. Again, I'd probably recommend doing this before you clip your pieces in. In which case you're doing it on this pin in reference to this. Come on, focus. There we go. In reference to this, you're doing it on that pin there. So that's going to be our common, which will go to ground on the board. Then we want to strip the other side, and strip one side of this and wrap them together to solder onto the other common, and then that'll join onto the switch later on. So we wanted to give ourselves enough length. I'll carefully wrap that around. And then I'll just sit that there with a nice hot soldering iron. We'll just solder those two connections. I'll do this very carefully now because I've got all the plastic around it. Oh, see, now that occasionally happens. You end up with a blob like that. So if you do that, you can sometimes get it off again. Sometimes you can't, and you can just trim it up with your side cutters. So that's plenty out of the way though. Then we want our two centre ones to come back separately. Now it's up to you if you want to use a different colour for every single one of these. I'm going to go for white, and they've both got to come back separately, so I'm going to run two long pieces of white just like we cut for the other, and then I can always test with the meter to see which one's which when we come to the other connections later on. But we have two pieces of white, and we're going to strip them and solder them to these centre pins just like we did the other ones. So we'll move them out of the way. We'll wrap this one round. So again, tedious and fiddly, but there's no other way of really dealing with these things. Sometimes it helps if you wind them up a bit like that, so they're a bit easier to deal with. Now, as you can see, this does get quite fiddly. Tiny little wires and things. It's a bit different to what I normally deal with every day. Right, there we go. I'm trying to do this while keeping it in camera, but I'm having to concentrate quite a lot on what I'm doing. There's one. I think we'll solder that before I accidentally pull it off. So we'll just take my soldering iron, take a little bit of solder, and we'll wet it first. There. That was a much nicer solder joint, that one. Didn't go all blobby and horrible. Not that it matters if it ends up blobby and horrible, as long as it doesn't touch anything. And as long as you've got it hot so it solders properly. That's the important part. You must get your soldering iron properly hot. Oh, there we go, it rolled off the bench. I'm glad I'm not doing this to professional standards of video making. Right, we'll wind this one on. And we'll solder this one. So you do have to have time and patience doing this. It doesn't have to be perfect, no one's going to see it. It's better off looking a bit messy and being soldered properly than trying to make it all look perfect and having a dry joint or poor soldering. The important part is the solder joins properly. There we go, very nice. That's it. Takes, if your holding iron's hot, it's that quick because it's such a tiny part. And there we can see all those wires ready to come off. And that will be our connections for the next part of this switch when we come to assembling that. Now, because the next part we want to solder is this neatly brings us on to siliconing the text, as all the wires for this switch have to go through all the parts. This is the little microphone decorative part that fits in here. So before we do that, we want to fill in the text with silicone. So we've got some white silicone sealant, and I'll get a bit of new clean rag, and it's quite simple. We just I've got some gloves on because I'm good at making a mess. You see there's microphone in there, but it's very hard to see at the moment. We want it nice, bright and white, so we'll daub some silicone on, and then we can use our work it into the letters. If this doesn't come out right, we can always come back. We can wipe off the excess, and any little lumps or anything, once you've let it set, can just be easily peeled off, as you can already see. There we go, look at that. So that, I'll wipe off that bit in the middle. It's not very easy with these gloves that are too big for my tiny hands. There we go. Quick, easy and simple. I'll just do it on this one, we'll show you this, but all the text basically fills in the same way. My computer's decided to chime in with the fan. Alright, get you to focus. There we go. So there we go. That's all. Once that's dry, that's all ready to be fitted on. Right, now we want to fit the microphone switch. What we have to remember is that all the wires We've got to come through this and through this before they solder onto this. So we're going to want one wire leading back, which again I'm just going to make for switches. I'm going to make white because I can just see. Actually, this one I'm going to make a different colour because these two have to go to another switch to switch between the two switching modes. So I'm going to make this one green. Doesn't matter which side, and I'm going to need a blue one as well for the. This will be the common going back. So we'll strip these. At this point, we probably want to join them up with our two wires here and try and feed them all back through our tube and out the way. So if we just twist them together a little bit, we should be able to poke them through our tube with a bit of fiddling. Oh, there we are. Just, there we go. Get them through. So then we've got all our whoa, push me green ones too far. There we go. These two got to stay out. Leave these white ones nice and long and loose there for a minute. Right, the first thing to remember is these have to go through the nut, and it's not just this one, it's the one we're going to join on for the common here as well. If we forget that, we will not be pleased with ourselves. Pull these ones back down. Then all three of these have to feed through here first, so we have to make sure that our nut is on. If you solder this all up and forget, so there's our nut. Should be able to come up. Oh, run down those wires. It got tangled up in another wire. No, it should be fine. There we go, get it round the white ones, and there it'll sit ready to be tightened up. So once we've run those through, we'll move all those ones out of the way. We've got our three wires here. We have to poke them through our decorative microfoam piece. Just make sure that fits over our thread nicely. Yeah, that's lovely. Now these can have a rubber washer under them, but I think this, I mean, it's meant to be for waterproofing, but it's hardly going to be an issue on this. I think that's probably better like that. So yes, these are going to go through here, all three wires. Don't get away from me. You see why we needed to make these long enough. Now the two blue ones are going to be, turned our soldering on. The two blue ones are going to be wrapped together. And then the green one's going to be our return. It doesn't matter which of these you choose to put the green or blue on, because it's just a connection. So we'll put the green one on that one. And I'll get my oh, where's that gone? Here we are. Get my little knife and wrap that around. And then we'll get the blue. I think we'll feed it in from the inside there, because then your wire's more out of the way. You can wrap that round. And if my soldering iron has heated up, it may not have yet. No! Oh, I'm going to have to edit this piece out as we wait for my soldering iron. You see, this is what you don't want to be doing. You want to be nice and hot by the time you get here. Now, come on, heat up. It's just getting there. See, it's just melting. My dirty soldering iron. You can get it to focus. Nope, it's going to focus on the background. But it's only just sort of puddly melting. And this is when people try and solder because it's just started to melt and it doesn't work. It needs to be really hot. Yes, it's not hot enough. But, oh dear. That'll go wrong if you try and solder it as cold as that. Now it's starting to melt, and you'll see as soon as we put the... There, it's not. It's just about hot enough. So we'll do one here. And we'll do the other side. And even that was a little bit cold for that, really. That's got it. Right, now you've got them done. Trim off any little spikes. You don't want them in the way. Then these wires, the green can be pulled back through. The other blue can be pulled back through. There we go. Push them through like that. And the tricky part is getting the nut on in the inside. That is a bit of a fiddle, admittedly. That green a bit more. There we go. That's rested down on it, and we can just get it over onto the body. Once you've got the thread started, you're laughing really. That blue's come up again. Where's that one? Pull that down out of the way. There we go. So, getting the nut down onto the body is the fiddly part. Once you've got it started, and it's not so bad. It's just getting it started. It's a bit of a fiddle. And you can just sort of flick it down. And when you get to the end, there's not really any good way of tightening it on this. You have to set where you want your microphone. I think there. Hold that in place and then just tighten it up as best you can, pushing it around with a screwdriver. You can give it a little tap once you've got it where you want. There we go. I think that's as good as you can get it. You can get it fairly tight like that. And your switch and all your wiring in the handle is done. It's all ready to feed through into the bottom. Right, next we need to feed these through our handle. So it's easy if you just get the wires, you can twist them together a little bit and then carefully feed all the ends down the hole like so. You see they start to come out at the other end. You can pull them through. start to bunch up, we can just pull them tight and carefully. The green one's coming loose. Right. Slide that up into place, and then you're ready for the 2 securing bolts. I've got them ready first. Where are they? I think we'll find them in a minute. Right, once we've got this part together, we can take your 2 5mm countersunk screws. They'll fit through here. You should have a little clearance. Take your screwdriver. A little bit tight on here. It's got a grip on there. Right, then we can put a washer on each end. And that. Just gently nip them up. No need to go mad, just very gently tighten them. Oh, there's my other nut. Sutter. We'll just do the other one. And this is pretty much how the original one was attached to its lever. And that you'll find is pretty solid.